Okay,
All
so
right.
I'm here with Henry Hank Dunn of Port Jervis, New York. Hank, some background information to confirm with you. You were born in 1948,
Correct.
graduated from Port Jervis High School in 1966,
Correct.
entered the Army in January of 1967, right?
Yes.
And your dad and brother also both served in the military, correct?
Yes.
And any other members of your family in the past military service that you know of?
Dad served during World War II, fought against the Japanese. My brother was in Korea after the Korean War, and I just followed in their steps, enlisted in the Army.
So what caused you to enlist? I mean, you know, it wasn't very nice over there at the time when you went.
I was very concerned reading everything that was going on about Vietnam and the number of people, the number of soldiers that they are sending to Vietnam in the infantry to get involved in this war. And my concern was maybe it would be better to enlist and try to get into a specialty rather than get drafted and just go where they send you. So I had always had desires to become a New York State policeman. So I thought that if I could get in the military police into the Army, that would go towards the training, and you can at least use that experience if you do in fact become a New York State trooper.
Which you did.
Which I did.
That was
yes.
very smart.
It worked out well.
And a young man, that's a hard plan to make when there's a war going on.
Sure.
So you were chosen by your leaders to be a dog handler. Do you know why they chose you for that?
Typical Army fashion, the entire company graduated from military police training in Fort Gordon, Georgia. And someone came through the door and said, congratulations, you're all going to Lackland Air Force Base to be trained as Sentry dog handlers. So it wasn't any volunteers, they just volunteered the entire company.
And you said, okay.
We're there to take orders, we follow orders.
So I know that you've always had dogs, from what I've known. Did you have a dog while you were growing up? And
No, actually we had cats growing up, but as soon as I became married and we started a family, we've had dogs ever since then.
And what was it like meeting your 3-year-old German Shepherd partner, Lobo, when you met Lobo, and how would you describe Lobo?
Lobo came from a California family. He was a family dog, very friendly, obviously treated well. And they spent at Lackland Air Force Base, they spent extra time with Lobo agitating him for him to become, the word is, a nasty dog. Sentry dogs are trained to bite anybody other than the handler, and you had to be very careful of that. But he was just a good-natured, friendly dog, and trying to turn that temperament of him was not easy.
Yeah, coming from a family.
Sure, that's what he knew. It was a loving family, obviously, you could tell. Yeah.
Aw. And what was it like training for being a dog handler? What was it like training with Lobo?
Well, number one, a lot of the dogs are recycled. So if you have a dog that's recycled, he's actually training the handler because he knows his job, and you have to learn the job. But it was just a partnership. I mean, the dog and the handler, if it's a new dog such as mine was, we're learning together. And it's a new experience for both.
So when you landed, Cameron Bay is how you say it, right?
Cameron Bay, correct.
Cameron Bay.
Yes.
And then you were transported to the South China Sea at Phan Rang?
Correct, Phan Rang,
Phan
yes.
Rang. Did you know anyone else there that could have been told you what you'd be experiencing with your dog?
Well,
I know that you met up with a couple of Port Jervis people briefly.
Sure, I met Bob Ridley at Fort Carson, Colorado. We had a conversation one day. Hey, Bob, where you from? New York. Whereabouts? Orange County, if you know where that is. Yeah, whereabouts? On the western end of the county. Yeah, whereabouts? Little place. Spearbush, New York, I'm from. Wait a minute, you're from Birdtown? And he said, yeah. So we met there, and of course, we've been friends ever since. But You know, when I got sent to Fan Rang, there's 5 dog handlers already there. I was replacing somebody else, so you just make friends as you go with other dog handlers.
And did you know your infantry duty, MP duty it was, right?
Yes.
Would immediately be patrolling an outpost in a quiet, pitch dark of night, and that only a couple of rows of barbed wire would be between you and the hidden enemy. Did you know that when you got off the plane?
We knew that. We were in training at Fort Carson, Colorado, and they would drop us off at midnight, cold, very cold out, and they would drop us off at the exterior of maybe a supply depot, something that we could train at, walk a perimeter. You know, they would maybe try and sneak somebody in on you to see if the dog is going to alert or not, but we pretty much had a good idea. We didn't know where we were going, obviously, but we knew that we would be protecting a perimeter or I was on Fan Rang, we were protecting big fuel pumps. And it was like 50 Army guys there, infantry guys with us, and 6 dog handlers. And yeah, there was, when there was no moon, when it's completely dark out, if you're not afraid, there's something wrong with you. Most dog handlers just wait for that full moon to come up so that you have some sight on the field in front of you. But then again, you have to remember the enemy can see you as well as you can see him. So you have to be careful. But it certainly was a new experience for every handler and every dog.
And did your K9 usually prompt the enemy fire, or kind of scared them away by them being there?
Please understand that the South Vietnamese were very afraid of the Sentry dogs. And probably not more so than what we are. Would you want a 90-pound German Shepherd after you that's trying to bite you? Absolutely not. They stayed clear of the dogs. They didn't like the dogs at all, and we understand why. And when we're walking that perimeter, we very rarely had any problems. What we encountered in Fan Rang was they would shoot some small arms ammo at us, receive small arms fire, and they would mortar us. They would throw 4 or 5 mortar rounds in on the camp, this small little camp and outpost, and then they would leave. They hit and they ran very quickly. We had a Korean outpost out in front of us, and they were always on patrol. So it was always a hit and run tactic by them, and the fear of the dogs that they had, just like many Americans, prevented them from coming near the concertina wire. I mean, they did approach it at different times, but pretty much they kept their distance.
It's effective. So unless they came through the wire, they didn't get attacked, right? They couldn't get attacked by the dog.
If they get through the wire, they're going to get attacked by the dog.
But if they stayed outside and just threw things in.
If they stayed outside, right. You know, you could release the dog to go through. He'd get through the wire in a hurry. But you don't know how many enemy are out there. If you release him, which is not a good idea, and he gets through the wire in a hurry and he starts biting on some enemy, he very easily could be killed or shot by another enemy soldier. So that was the last resort, to release your dog.
And do you feel Lobo's actions in war helped save life? Well, obviously it did if they were chasing the enemy away.
Right.
From fear.
Yeah, he kept the enemy at a distance, that's for sure.
And so the thing about the bounty, did you know anything about a bounty on you or your dog?
We always heard that. Did that come firsthand from some enemy soldier? No, but we heard that yeah, they would pay extra for the shooting of a dog or a handler.
So I know that you shared once that you had, when you left your infantry unit, a dog handler and a dog that took your place was killed several days later on that perimeter post that you would have been patrolling. Do you know anything about that dog that arrived with that soldier?
I never
It was
met
right
him.
where you were, right?
Right, he replaced me. We had our shifts were designed a month in advance, so we would either work 6 to midnight or midnight to 6 a.m. in the morning. And your shift, you knew your shift well in advance. And when I transferred out, we were like two ships passing in a night. I was going one way and he was coming into the post, the outpost. So I never did get to meet him. And then, of course, when they broke through the perimeter, when they came through the perimeter one night, they shot and killed the dog and the handler that replaced me on my particular post. And then ran around the compound throwing a couple sasso charges, and the enemy soldiers were killed because it's not easy for them to get out of this outpost now that they've broken into. Yeah, I two ships passing in the night. I never got to meet him, and how sad that he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah. And did you ever find out if your dog remained on that outpost duty somewhere, or where he was reassigned to?
No, I'm really not sure where he ended up. You know, he went back to Cameron Bay with me and obviously was reassigned to another handler at some point.
So he would have been retrained to work with a different
Well, you're not
handler.
retraining the dog, you may be
Retraining the
training a handler, but, so I don't know, did he get an experienced handler that, you know, the dogs are like us, they get sick, and sometimes you have to put them down. So if you got a dog that's already trained, it makes your job a little bit easier.
So after you left that outpost, you moved to the jungle convoy runs, and that didn't involve a canine dog at that point, right?
That's correct. No.
So you were done being a sentry handler.
Yes, yes.
And what was that experience like compared to being a sentry handler with your dog?
I was very pleased to be able to transfer to another military police unit that was providing escorts for supply runs. I never did enjoy going out there in the pitch black, dependent on the dog to detect an enemy early enough that you can react to that. But working days, we didn't run convoys at night because the enemy ruled the night, we ruled the day. So we ran strictly convoys during the day, and it was nice having a sun over your head that you could see where you're going and you could see other people. It was just a different type of job.
Now, that couldn't have been too safe either, though. Going through the jungles with a convoy.
Correct. There are very few unsafe places in Vietnam.
So did you ever have a desire to go back?
I've discussed this different times. My wife and I have discussed it. Vietnam is a beautiful country. And it's the resorts have built up there. I mean, people go to Vietnam to vacation. And one of the guys in the military police company that I went to, the 630th Military Police Company, actually bought a home in Hanoi. And I said, "Are you kidding?" And he says, no, I come back to the United States when it's summertime over in Vietnam because it gets beastly hot. And I was just totally surprised with that.
Wow.
Bought a house in Vietnam, in North Vietnam in particular. But everybody gets along well now, you know, from whatever you read and see.
And as far as the dogs, when their service is done, I understand now they are sent back home, right? They're pretty much sent back home like a veteran would be. I mean, I'm told that canine dogs come home. Do you know that to be true now?
No, well, not a sentry dog. They won't ever send a sentry dog.
Oh, it would be
home.
the scout
A
dogs.
scout dog, they may, sure. But a sentry dog, you could, that was just too much of a risk because they're trained to bite anybody other than their handler.
And I think there were also messenger dogs.
There was, absolutely, there was messenger dogs.
And they
sure.
just carried, like, carrier pigeons kind of, carried messages
Yes,
from one.
absolutely, absolutely. Dogs can be trained to do a lot of things.
And so you continued to adopt dogs and bring dogs into your family. What would you say a dog brings into a person's life?
Oh, they bring a lot into a family. You know, they're a family member, and you know, they don't have the long life that we do, and when they die or you have to put them down because of an illness, it's one of the saddest days of your life. They're just part of the family.
And as far as Port Jervis having a monument now for the canine military dogs, how do you feel having that in Port Jervis?
What a wonderful suggestion. Mary Lou Hack approached me and said, what do you think about maybe trying to get together and put a dog memorial at Orange Square, Veterans Park? And I said, what a wonderful idea, being a former dog handler, and of course I knew of Bob Ridley, and I knew Jim Mulligan, who was a Sentry dog, or I'm sorry, a scout dog handler. We've become very friendly. I thought it was a wonderful idea, and all you had to do was say to Mary Lou, yeah, let's do that, and she was off and running. She was collecting money, she was putting what should go down, be engraved on the monument. So if you have a job for Mary Lou, just tell her what you need and she'll go and do it.
I think it was like brought up earlier even in this year, and she had a plan that it would be ready for Veterans Day.
That was the plan. We had to have it ready for Veterans Day, and it worked well. I mean, Veterans Day is this Monday, and we're up and running. You know, we have to thank the DPW. We have to thank Gray Parker Funeral Home. They were the ones that sent the monument out to be engraved. I think that went all the way down south. But it was just a whole family coming together from different directions that we now have this monument at the park.
And when you look back on the war years and military service, do you have any advice as a veteran for people that should know something about that time or joining the military? Is there any thoughts that you would like to tell people?
Yeah, you know, the saddest thing that I think I encountered was the fact that we were sent there to do a job. We were, as a soldier, you follow orders, and you know, we were sent over there, and when we came back home, we were mistreated. Some of the soldiers returning were spit on. They were called names such as baby killers. It wasn't a fun time for any of us. A lot of us came into the airport, and the first thing you did was go into a men's room and get your uniform off. And put on some civilian clothes because you didn't want to put up with this harassment from any other people at the airport that, you know, the media has turned against us. And we're just following orders. But of course, once you put your civilian clothes on, you're still carrying a duffel bag, an Army duffel bag through the terminal. So, I mean, everyone still had a good idea that you were a soldier. It's just a sad time for us.
It seems like that's changing now, finally, after all these years.
It finally is, and I'm so pleased when anyone walks up to you, be an adult, a child, and says, thank you for your service, and wants to shake your hand. That happened to me. I was at the monument in Washington, D.C., the unknown soldier's grave, and I had a 5th grade young man walk up to me, stick his hand out and say, thank you for your service, and I brought tears to my eyes. It was the first time that had happened, and I really was so thankful about that.
Well, thank you so much.